If you're looking for honest, real-world, no BS advice on how to create income, build wealth, and achieve true freedom with real estate, you're in the right place. Welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Preacher Podcast Show, where your host Randy Lawrence shares with you his experiences and strategies from over decades as a successful real estate investor. This episode is sponsored by Prosperity Capital Partners. Learn more at prosperitycapitalpartners.net. Now, on to the show.
All right. Hey, welcome to another amazing episode of the Real Estate Preacher. We have got a fantastic episode today. My good buddy Nate is going to be on here. Nate Trunfio from DLP Capital, Direct Lending Partners. So excited to have you on, and you guys who are listening today are going to be especially blessed. Nate, welcome to the show, brother.
What a warm welcoming, and thank you. It's an honor to be here, man, and I just hope I can live up to that hype, but I'm pretty confident that when we come together, good things happen.
It's all good, man. Like when we were in Orlando at NMHC, man, we're like going off the chain. People are walking by like, whoa, what's going on here, man? So, and you know what? Hey, that's the truth. There's a great quote I love. I shared this with another dude the other day. Iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. When you got a pro like yourself and myself come together, good things happen. So it's all.
And we cover all the bases between you and me, you know, so yeah, sure. I love it.
No stone unturned, man. Well, let's talk about, first and foremost, some of the folks that are listening, they may not be familiar with DLP. A bunch are. So let's talk about, like, what's your role at DLP? What does the main things that DLP does?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So sometimes it's surprisingly, it can be a struggle to explain it because we do a lot. And sometimes I always think it's better to say what we don't do because we do, like, again, we do a lot. So I personally am the president of DLP Direct Lending Partners. It's the lending arm of our business. We lend on all things single family fix and flip, single family new construction, and multifamily bridge loans. I'm going to circle back to that because I want to talk a little bit about our story and who we are as a core.
Yeah.
So I'm very fortunate enough to be on the executive team and partake with a lot of awesome leaders in helping drive the business to continue to scale. DLP Real Estate Capital, we're actually more of like investment managers, and we started off as realtors. So we're not only like a lending institution, we raise money, but we're also an operator. And so we started as realtors. We still run a very successful realty brokerage up here in Lehigh Valley today. I think it was number 8 in the Wall Street Journal last year. So we did a lot of deals, and that's how we got our start. And we, meaning us as a company, but our awesome owner, Don Wenner, was the founder and owner of all of the companies. So we first started fixing and flipping. We've now done well over 1,200 fix and flips as an executive team in our existence. We then started to realize we needed some additional outside capital, so we opened up the capital, our DLP Capital Advisors, which is where we raise our money. We raise money into all open-ended funds. So that is sort of the where it comes into play for an investment manager perspective. As we started to get the gasoline for the car, the capital, we started to say, how can we better deploy it with scale and consistently sustain profitability? And we derived on multifamily. Mm-hmm. So we started going down that route. We started in the smaller unit communities, C class, to now growing to C, B, and even touching a little bit of A class. We own about 10,000 doors right now. We self-manage most of those. So we have a large property management team. And again, we're very much about being an operator and having control over everything we do. So we raise our money so that we can deploy it in the way that we know it. And then we manage the assets and manage it to the business plan as we can.
Yeah,
Along the way, we said, we're tired of working with other hard money lenders, bridge loan lenders. So we decided to open up our own. That's where Direct Lending Partners came into play. And essentially those products that we lend on, single family fix and flip, single family new construction, and multifamily bridge, we operate and we invest in all those asset classes and strategies, yet we also lend on it. So we like to think we can bring an operator's mindset to how we lend, which allows us to not only sort of be in the gray area, go outside the box at times, but also create relationships with real estate investors. And that's sort of what we're all about here at DLP, is providing an opportunity for people to grow personally within their business, create wealth. And that's all across from our investors to our employees to whether our end clients or our end borrowers. And that's, a little bit about a lot of what we do.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's awesome, brother. And again, just a very, I love, the hands-on approach and the reality of very similar to us, bringing full integration to it, controlling the processes. And, talk a bit about how that's helped you with scaling in the process, because again, a lot of people, whether it's an attorney's office or whether it's a real estate investor or a doctor who's listening, there is a lot of times that desire to scale, to grow. And how is that served with you guys? Share a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, one thing that how I want to talk about that is the one thing that we're like just super proud of as an organization is our culture. And what brings together our culture is what we're all about and where we're going and what we're trying to do. So we're here to provide real estate solutions, as you can tell from a number of different strategies and verticals, in order to help improve other people's lives. So like I said, not only to our investors who invest the money, our employees who help us get there, to then, the end client, whether it's a borrower on the lending side, a tenant on the acquisition and property management side, and so on and so forth. So that's sort of at our core and at our nucleus is essentially our mission and our purpose. From there, then we go out and we set our goals. We're a very goal-driven and oriented company. So just like a lot of people that have implemented like the EOS platform, we have goals for the longer term, 10 years, 5 years, 3 years, always are setting consistently 1-year goals. And then we chunk it even further down into our rocks, our 90-day world, our 90-day goals. So the goals, it allows us to continue to drive ourselves. The mission, the purpose, and our culture allows us to bring in the right people to help drive towards that. Mm-hmm. And then you bring it down one more level granular is we set a lot of processes, and we make sure that we are in tune with all of our people that are helping us accomplish these goals by making sure they know their responsibilities, they know what their expectations are, and then we have a culture of accountability. And what's really cool about that is that yes, you need to focus a lot on the accountability factor, but our culture as a whole, people trying to do good for themselves and do good for others, is always just one that's holding everybody accountable to that, and then to their respective responsibilities and expectations along the way. So I know that's sort of like high level, broad strokes on it.
Yeah.
We start at who we are, then we go to where we're going, and then it's how we're going to get there. And that's, through processes and our people.
Absolutely. I mean, that's just so critical. And again, that you've got to have, the right processes in place. And again, that happens a lot with people where they may want to grow their business, but they don't have a quality process. And like you mentioned, the EOS system, that is a great system that a lot of folks use or some variation therein, but it helps to align all the employees focused on a particular direction in establishing those goals. And so that's really critical. And then even too, making sure that the right people are on the bus, right? And then even more from there of having them in the right seat on the bus. And again, that's where, I've seen that attorneys or doctors or, engineer guys that run a company where they've not necessarily had the right culture, meaning the right people. And so that's where I think it's super critical too, to be able to have that, no doubt. And then that's also why you guys have, garnered such success as well, is because you have those components together. Everybody on the ship is rowing in the same direction towards the same end result.
Yeah, I mean, we are very much aligned there, my friends. And I think we're reading from the same book, probably a lot of Jim Collins type of stuff.
Yeah.
But we're big on bringing in the right people to the bus and putting them in the right seat. And then I think what's one thing that's missed oftentimes is like, okay, you bring in the right personality for, let's say, an acquisitions manager. And you put them that's the right person. They fit your culture. They fit your mission and purpose. And that that's something that they can excel at, whether it's based on their experience or based on their personality index and so on and so forth. But then you have to give them not only direction, but also the expectations of how they're going to go about doing that and define that at its core. So that's something that we spend a lot of time on, not only just who we bring in and where we put them, but then what we expect that seat to do and where we want it to go. And we break that down really prior to bringing anybody aboard, even starting with our job posts. So we build out a job post based on the responsibilities and the expectations that we want for the end person to have in the given job. We use that to find that type of person. And then we make sure when we bring that person aboard, they fully know what is it they are going to do and what the expectations of what they're going to do, they're going to be held to. So it's something that's all across the ranks.
Huge right there. That's huge. I don't want folks to miss that. Like when you're adding team members, that you're identifying, what it is, the type of person that you're looking for based on the expectations of the culture and the job responsibilities, so that you're kind of self-weeding out people that are not going to be a match for that, right? I mean, too oftentimes people just kind of, it's like the throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. And then you got a hodgepodge of crap coming in and people are overwhelmed because they're weeding through so much stuff that doesn't, kind of fit. Or even then worse yet, they don't have a process, whether it's Colby or DISC or whatever the ultimate personality profiling may be, to really identify that. And we do very much the same thing where it's, again, we identify our values and then the expectations, and then Lord willing, that helps to weed out some of those people that, are not going to be a right fit.
And bring it full circle, right? Like when they know exactly what the responsibilities are and what the expectations, we have them and they have of themselves, then you can entrust and empower them to help you push the needle towards your goals. And, otherwise you're just, like you said, throwing crap up against the wall. Yeah. And that's not going to get you anywhere. That's not with specific purpose, with specific plan, and you're not relying on any specific process. In order to fit people into all those P's, they got to know what they're there for and what they're going to be held accountable to. You got to give them that direction.
Yeah. Well, I think too, the thing you said, which people leave out of the mix too sometimes, is that accountability. You've set the expectations, you've put that in place, but then it also requires that maybe continued empowerment, but also the accountability focus. Too oftentimes I've seen where guys that are running a business where, okay, they hire the person, they throw them at it, and then just to expect to come back and see success, 30, 60 days later. And when they check back in 30 days later and it's a mess, it's like, well, how the heck did that happen? It's like, well, there was no, accountability along the way. There was no iteration and instruction. There's no, real help that needs.
This is my attempt at being a rapper, I guess, because this is the only I can connect 3 rhymes here. So my rhymes to this is always, people respect what you inspect.
Yeah.
And you have to inspect what you expect.
Absolutely.
So, to the seat level, they're not going to, respect anything that you're not following up on and that you're not even, helping coach them to and through and lead them on. And then, how can you, look to expect them to do it if you're not inspecting it either? So that's sort of where I tie that whole bow together,
sure.
Which is very relevant to me to accountability, because a lot, like you said, a lot of so-called leaders think that they can just bring in the right people and they're going to be self-sustaining and help you continue on your path. But if you're not along the way, help coaching them and then, sort of inspecting what they're doing, they won't respect it. And how can you expect it to get done if you're not the one helping, make sure it's getting done? And maybe it's not always you that's doing it, but someone on the team has to at least follow through in order for there to be that big A word of accountability.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and again, there's definitely work involved in it, but the reward is then now you've got people in process that's helping to grow. Because again, if for those of you listening, it's like, hey, if there's a desire to grow the law practice or grow your, dentistry practice or grow your, professional practice, it's got to have more than just your involvement. And that's going to be those people. That's going to be that process. That's going to be the element of scaling, which is so critical. So how did you get involved in real estate? Because one doesn't just step in as the president of DLP, so how how does that work? What does it look like? What's the story behind Nate?
Yeah. So I'm younger-ish. I'm on the younger side. I graduated college in 2009. A little bit of a tough time to find employment. There wasn't a ton of jobs. We all know what was going on right around then. And I almost followed sort of in your original footsteps of getting into money management.
Yep.
And was about to take a job with MetLife, which they would have paid me X amount of money for 6 months, which coming out of college, it was a good amount of money for me at the time.
Yeah.
And they asked me to go source my own business. And I was a college kid. I was from Massachusetts, living in Pennsylvania. I didn't know anybody. So to come up with a whole 100 list of people to go after was tough for me. I ended up luckily taking a job that would pay me minimum wage, but they gave me leads, and it was in the mortgage business. So I got my start in anything real estate through residential mortgages. If you remember back to 09, 010, it was like the refi boom.
Yep.
And so, I really learned the corporate world, learned how to be successful, which to me was just literally out grinding everybody.
Yep.
I was always going to be the last one out of the office was my mentality. And then I kept wanting to climb the ladder more. So got into management early on, and really along the way, just found that yearning to continue to learn more and become a master in my craft. So I worked on mastering the craft of mortgages. I worked on mastering the craft of management, which I don't know if anybody can ever master, but I tried.
Yeah.
And so that got me really just hooked on real estate, right? Because obviously mortgages tied to property.
Yep.
From there, I got tired of the red tape of the residential lending industry. So I got out of that and I started, I was director for 2 different debt funds that lent business to business lending. So lending to the small businesses. And that really taught me all of my credit knack. It wasn't as much real estate focused, but who do you give money to? How do you structure deals to make sure you're mitigating risk, risk adjusted returns, credit analysis, all that fun stuff. I really learned from my stint for about 3 years in the B2B lending space. And then I was looking to get out of that and just found and stumbled my way into DLP. And this was just this beautiful mix of conservative residential lending with a lot of red tape. B2B was the wild, wild west. Do sort of anything, and money's really expensive to find this happy medium in private money and hard money here. So that's sort of the journey that I took. But again, all of it really bled through just trying to outwork everybody, trying to put in more, not expect anything to be given to me, learning as much as I can along the way, because it's cliche, everybody says it, but if you're not learning, you're dying. And if you're not in pursuit of something bigger and more, to me, which is knowledge, it's really hard to get good at anything and find success.
Well, that's so critical too. What you said there, it just stands out about being a master of your craft. Really, being willing to put in the work right where you are to get better, right? And I know I don't even have to ask this question, but I know the answer. It's you are always putting in more than you are asking for in return. At every level, you're looking to become better. You're looking to do more. You're looking to outwork the other guy so as that you can improve. And that's really, if you want to advance to accomplishing more of what your desires are, that's really what it requires. And, unfortunately, a lot of times today, younger folks maybe don't have as much of that hunger. Yeah. And, it's just true.
That was always a chip I had on my shoulder, right? Being one of the younger guys in the office. And so that honestly was something that I see it. A lot of my peers had the same opportunities as me, without a doubt. I mean, nobody gave me this job. I didn't know anybody that got me the job that I originally got to put me on this path.
Yeah.
I was hustling out there looking for jobs, willing to do whatever it took, and knew that I had to outwork, all my peers. It was a tough time to get jobs back then. So
for sure.
I'm completely with you on that. And then, the other biggest thing and challenging is growth. Like I said earlier, is growth and management. And I take a lot of pride in where I'm at in levels of leadership. I revert to John Maxwell's book of the 5 levels of leadership. It's an old time classic in that. And, like I said, to me, it's definitely not a science. It's probably more of an art, and it more so just a combination of the two. And that's, my one thing that I always revert back to is what's my why? And it's to either, if it's not a person, make something better. If it is a person, just provide impact. And that sort of led me throughout all of that. And then ties into sort of what I think makes people successful in management or leadership. And you know, it's just a topic that hits home with me. I have a lot of passion for sure.
For sure. Well, no, that's awesome. I remember in 2008, I read the book Thinking for a Change, which was written by John Maxwell, of course, and had been as a pastor too, had met him. He actually came and helped our church raise money for a new building program back in the 90s.
No way.
Yeah, for sure. And then, you know, funny enough too, it's like how the universe works, how God works, is then in probably 2010 met Paul Martinelli, who then a couple years later became the president of the John Maxwell team. And, you know, was at John's 65th birthday party as part of that in Palm Beach and stuff. And just kind of neat how God brings all those things together. But myself, from probably 97, being a desire to learn and grow, and that was part of that thing. And just seeing, you know, what you said is like, it's true. It's like a lot of times people don't look to become a better manager, a better impact of working with people. And at the end of the day, everything we do involves people, right? I mean, everything. And so even to some people say, oh, well, I'm not a manager. Well, you know, if you have a household and, you know, have a spouse and kids, there's some management and people impact going on there. So, you know, all of us have interrelationship with people and impact. And so it's like, as you can become better at your people skills. And I love what you said about if it's a person, you know, how can I make a positive impact? And like all of us have the ability to do that no matter what our title is, you know.
That's what to me, that's what a true leader is, right? It's not somebody that's given it by status, but it's somebody that people are always attracted to, always want to be around, always want to look to. And a lot of the reasons for that is because they first were giving, and they exemplified. They didn't, like you said earlier, it's you didn't expect to get. You just gave to benefit others and impact others and help drive others, aka lead others. And that's to me where you get to that, you know, fourth and fifth level of leadership. If you revert back to the book, is, you know, people that are selfless and, you know, just giving for the cause and for the greater good of their people. And that's what people respect. And that's when people call, you know, say, oh, this person's a leader, that person's a leader. And it's really not because of any one specific thing they do or don't. It's more that whole concept.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting though, too, and see, it's counterintuitive, but it's also one of the laws, the law of sowing and reaping, right? Like you have to be willing to sow. That means you're taking some of what you have, whether it's time, talent, money, whatever, and you're giving it, you're sowing it into this purpose, this person, with an expectation or belief that that will come back to you. And it's like, that's the truth, you know. Now, again, too many people don't want to give, and then they wonder why they're not receiving. And, you know, that's where it starts. And I go back just even to the simple analogy of like corn, right? With a guy that's growing corn, you've got to be willing to take whatever, call it 20% of your harvest, and take that and then sow it to become the seed that then produces that next 100-fold harvest next year, right? And so that's part of the thing in any endeavor, whether it's working with people or your finances, you've got to operate by those principles, man. So
agreed, man. And that, like I said, then it ties back into your purpose, your goals, and all that. It's awesome, man.
For sure. Well, let's do this before we close it out. Let's talk about, you know, I know some of the folks that are listening have definitely an interest in, you know, looking at how you guys define, you know, in the lending criteria. You've got a definite expertise in that. So like, you know, because again, there's some guys I know that listen that they've done one-off, you know, hard money loans, or, you know, they've invested in that arena as well too. So, but it, like, how do you guys, because you guys have done it very successfully. So when you're evaluating what makes a good loan, right, how do you go about that? What's your process? Kind of share with our audience, you know, here's what you got to look for, the good, the bad, the ugly, you know, because you see a lot of deals.
Yeah, so I'll talk and answer that in reference to sort of like looking at a fix and flip type deal, single family, because multifamily, you know, it's a lot more deeper layers of review. But you know, essentially, there's, two main, you can go to the books and look at the 5 C's of credit and go down that road. I'm going to break it down from an investment standpoint. It's twofold.
Yep.
It's the borrower and it's the asset. And when you're looking at the borrower in the world of fix and flip lending, we are first looking for proof of execution, experience. Have you done it before? When you've done this before and you've shown a track record and history of successfully navigating through investment deal strategies, we are more likely to think that you're going to be able to successfully do it again. So in reality, in the fix and flip realm, the more experience you have, the more, whether it's lenient we would be or the more aggressive we would be in the terms.
Yeah.
So that's one. And then you can go to the other fundamentals of credit and capacity. So, what's the credit profile look like and how much money do they have? But to us, we try to, like I said earlier, put an operator's mindset on and a common sense mindset on. And we know that sometimes credit can suffer as a real estate investor, or, you weren't paying attention and one little late payment, we can get through that as long as there's compensating factors tied to proof of execution and experience. So that's like the number one criteria that we look at from a borrower perspective. And in order to vet experience, we just want to see a track record, which is a plug. If you're an experienced real estate investor or you're one that's starting to get experience, make sure you have a repository of the deals that you have done and the facts of them, the purchase price, the renovation amount, how long, when you bought it, when you sold it, and all that stuff. So that's one thing you always need to have handy, because that's how we lenders verify your experience. And it's crazy. Even people that might have only done 2, 3, 4 deals in their life, it's hard to remember all those facts, right?
For sure.
Make sure you retain them and put them in like a track record form. The other side is the asset. It's a couple of fold. Is what are we lending against the asset as it is? What is our leverage on that deal? And then more importantly, what's the business strategy? What's the plan? And is it viable? And then is it profitable? So we're analyzing first, can the borrower execute on the plan? And then 2, what is the plan, which ties to the asset? How are we structured against that asset? And is it a good deal? Is it a profitable deal? If you're buying at a discount, then we're going to be a little bit more favorable on the terms, just because we know that you're getting at a discount to market value. We don't give 100% financing. So our leverage amount is going to be a lesser amount tied to that as is value. Therefore, we can get a little bit more aggressive with terms. And then we also want to look at what the business plan is, how much you're going to renovate, how much you're going to invest into CapEx and so on and so forth. And what's the ending value. So honestly, you can also look at it as you flip the switch to being an operator, borrower stuff aside, we try to look at a deal as if it's a viable deal as if we were an operator. And so is there a profit? Are you being conservative with the amount and realistic with the amount of renovations you need to have? So we analyze the asset specifically, the totality of the strategy, mix the two together, and that's where we sort of come out to terms. I probably made it a little bit more complicated than it really is, but that's just the mindset of how we look at it. In reality, we have 3 different tiers. You fall in the different tiers. We verify the asset and the deal itself, and put sort of the different metrics and leverage and proceeds tied to the asset based on the tier you're in. And that's sort of the terms that come out.
Yeah. No, I think that's awesome, bro, because again, I think the 2 elements there that you highlighted are so critical. It's one is the borrower, who that person is and their track record. Because I've seen where people have, they had an interest in investing in real estate or whatever. They went to a RIA meeting and, I don't know if I'm gonna do it. Well, I'll lend money to Johnny here. And then Johnny just, kind of craps his pants and doesn't get it done. And then they're left with a mess on their hands. And, then they're wondering, how did this happen? And it's like they didn't have a real, quality approach to it to say, okay, well, hey, is this guy somebody that, has executed and performed on this? And then, is the strategy a valid strategy that makes sense and really validates that it can make money? And I think that's critical, So again, I think that's great advice for sure. Well, hey, let me ask you this.
We've seen more often than not, you're relying on who's going to move the deal, right? And make it successful, who's going to execute on the strategy. And if there is no strategy, that's a problem, number one. And then number 2, who's behind that deal is very important, because almost any deal that, look, we're not perfect. We're very fortunate to say we have no losses on any of our loans to our fund. But at the same time, not every deal has been successful for operators. And in all those instances, It was more of the lack of strategy and the lack of execution of the operator, of the underlying borrower, that led to the failure.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why we've had no losses to our loan fund, is because the assets were sound. The strategy, you know, whether they executed or not, was probably there. We wouldn't have written a loan if it wasn't going to be a profitable deal. It's just there was not that execution, which goes to who was leading the execution, the borrower at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's awesome, brother. Well, that's awesome. Well, hey, how can those who are listening connect together with you and connect together with DLP? What would be the best way to connect?
Yeah, so please reach out to, well, first off, check us out on our website, www.directlendingpartners.com. You can learn all about us, all of our programs. Again, single family fix and flip, single family new construction, multifamily bridge. Important note is we are lending our own discretionary capital, which we raise in our funds. We're not tied to Wall Street. We're still very actively funding during all this pandemic and COVID stuff. So please reach out specifically to info@directlendingpartners.com, info@directlendingpartners.com. And I will make sure you are in the right hands. We have an awesome team of funding specialists and salespeople to help guide you on the way to making sure that we're the right partner to finance your deals.
For sure. And I can attest it's definitely great people throughout the organization. Well, Nate, I appreciate you, my brother, coming on, and thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you again soon. And for those of you who are listening, thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Real Estate Preacher podcast. I hope today that you learned something that you can immediately apply in your life or business. Make sure that you check us out on iTunes or at therealestatepreacher.com for more information. If you want to find out more about partnering together with me personally on real estate deals, including apartment complexes, go to therealestatepreacher.com and click on the Invest with Randy link. I look forward to talking with you personally. Have a blessed and victorious week, for this is the week God has ordained for you.